Chapter 1. I don't have a daughter like you, my dear-in-law. What on earth is going on? We agreed to an engagement between the Rhodes family and the Everly family heiress, but now you're telling me this Hazel Everly isn't even your biological daughter. The Rhodes family patriarch, Marcus Rhodes, wore a grim expression, his accusatory voice echoing through the entire Everly villa. My dear-in-law, it's all a misunderstanding. We had no idea either. Arthur Everly stomped his foot in a panic, then suddenly swung his hand and slapped Hazel hard across the face. He pointed a finger at her nose and cursed. You guttersnipe from who knows where, you've brought nothing but shame to the Everly family. A fiery sting spread across Hazel's cheek. A trickle of blood seeped from the corner of her mouth, leaving her looking utterly wretched. Dad, Hazel's voice trembled. She looked in disbelief at the man who had raised her for 20 years. He had actually hit her. You still call me Dad? The Everly family doesn't have a daughter like you, Arthur roared, venting all his frustration on Hazel. The Rhodes family was the second most powerful family in Easton City. To be able to form an alliance with them through marriage was a blessing from a past life. With this marriage, his faltering Everly enterprises would have had a chance to recover. And Hazel had ruined it all because she wasn't his biological daughter. How could Arthur not be frantic? I came to your home for an explanation, not to watch your family drama, Marcus Rhodes snapped, his face etched with irritation. A month ago, the entire financial world received our wedding invitations, and the ceremony is the day after tomorrow. How are you going to solve this? If the invitations hadn't already been sent out, he would have called off the engagement on the spot. My dear-in-law, rest assured it must have been a mix-up at the hospital. We will find our biological daughter today, I promise, Arthur said, his tone fawning as he repeatedly assured Marcus. Marcus's expression softened slightly. Remember, the most important thing in this alliance is sincerity. What does it say about you, trying to marry a guttersnipe into our family? Yes, sincerity above all, Arthur quickly agreed. Marcus shot a cold glance at Hazel and said, Since you are not a biological daughter of the Everly family, then from now on, you will cut off all contact with our Julian. With that, he turned and left the Everly villa without a second glance. Cut off all contact? Hazel felt as if she had been struck by lightning. That was the man she had loved deeply for 3 years. How could they just end things like that? Just yesterday, she had been so happy. She was the pampered heiress of the Everly family, in love with the young master of the Rhodes family, with their wedding just a week away. She thought she was the happiest woman in the world. But today, everything she had possessed shattered like a soap bubble. Dad, I'm begging you, please don't make me break up with Julian. Please. Hazel's eyes were bloodshot as she looked pleadingly at the father who had always doted on her. To her shock, Arthur roared back, his face contorted with rage. I told you, I'm not your dad. Get out, you guttersnipe, to think that I, Arthur Everly, raised someone else's daughter for 20 years. If this scandal gets out, I'll be utterly disgraced. Dad, Hazel was sobbing uncontrollably. She never imagined that 20 years of affection could be less important than blood ties. The moment Arthur learned she wasn't his biological daughter, but an infant switched at birth, he could be so heartless. Security, throw her out of the Everly villa, Chapter 2. At his command, at Arthur's command, Hazel was immediately seized by 2 security guards. Dad, please don't. You raised me for 20 years. Was our bond all a lie? Hazel screamed, her voice raw with anguish. 20 years did Arthur feel not even a shred of affection for her. Affection? Arthur let out a cold laugh. He looked at Hazel's tear-streaked face without a hint of pity and said icily, From the moment I knew you were a daughter, I saw you as a bargaining chip for marriage. My kindness to you over these 20 years was just to raise you quickly so you could marry into a family that would benefit Everly Enterprises. Arthur's words were like daggers, plunging deep into Hazel's heart. So this was a high society family. No affection, only interests. Since you can no longer bring me any benefits, then... A flicker of cruelty crossed Arthur's eyes. Get lost. The moment he finished speaking, the security guards shoved Hazel out forcefully. Bang, the heavy gates of the Everly villa slammed shut, as if sealing her off in another world. Hazel pounded on the gates like a madwoman, but the doors of the Everly home would never open for her again. I have to find Julian. Yes, Julian will help me. In her despair, Hazel thought of Julian Rhodes, like a drowning person grasping at the last straw. They had been in love for half a year. Julian would surely help her. When Hazel stumbled to Julian's house, she heard ambiguous sounds coming from his room. Anyone would know what was happening inside. Hazel's face instantly turned deathly pale. Julian was cheating on her. "Jules, you've given the paternity test results for that tramp to your father, right?" A woman's voice inside suddenly said. HMPH, that bitch. She knew she wasn't the real Everly heiress, but she kept up the act just to get close to you. How despicable. "Don't worry, the Everly family is probably searching everywhere for you right now. It's a good thing we held that press conference when we sent out the invitations a month ago. If you hadn't seen the news and found me, I might have actually married that tramp," Julian said, his voice laced with hatred. A woman who had deceived him like that deserved to die. Bang! The bedroom door was suddenly thrown open. Hazel stood at the entrance, tears streaming down her face as she stared at the bed. She felt a pain so intense she could barely breathe. The word tramp, Julian had actually used it to describe her. "Trollop," Julian roared when he saw the woman at the door. "Who let you in? Didn't I tell you not to bother me at home without my permission?" "Not bother you?" Seeing him dare to yell at her, Hazel was overcome with grief and fury. "Not bother you so you can continue fooling around with this harlot. You cheating swine. Hey, who are you calling a harlot?" The woman on the bed was not pleased. Wrapping a sheet around herself, she got off the bed with a sneer. "I am the real Miss Everly. Belle Everly, what right do you have to call me a harlot?" Chapter 3, What else? Belle looked at Hazel, whose looks and figure were far superior to her own, and the anger in her heart intensified. "You imposter," she said. "You've been living in the Everly house under my identity for so many years. It's time for you to get lost." Though furious, Hazel was at a loss for words. She wasn't Arthur Everly's biological daughter. The paternity test had made that crystal clear. "You what? You tart," Belle suddenly slapped her hard across the face. "You knew all along you weren't the real Everly heiress, didn't you? But you said nothing, shamelessly clinging to the Everly family just so you could climb into Jules's bed, right?" Hearing Belle's accusation, Julian decided to drop all pretense. He slowly got dressed and looked at Hazel with cold eyes. "Hazel, I never thought you were such a scheming woman. You knew the truth, but said nothing. Did you think you could hide it forever? You tramp." Hearing Julian insult her, Hazel felt her heart being sliced to pieces, but she explained through her grief and anger. "I didn't know anything about this, and I never deliberately tried to climb into anyone's bed 3 years ago, when the Everly and Rhodes families arranged for us to meet. That's when I fell for you. It was just love. There were no ulterior motives, no impure intentions, just love." But now, her feelings were being tarnished with so many baseless accusations. "Enough," Julian said coldly. "I've found the real Everly heiress now. Since you've seen us, we might as well make a clean break. Don't ever let me see you again." In that instant, Hazel's heart turned to ash. Arthur treated her this way, and now Julian, the man she thought was her destiny, was treating her the same. And it was all because she wasn't the real Everly heiress. "Julian Rhodes, were you with me? Were you engaged to me, only because I was the Everly heiress? Was there nothing else? In their 3 years together, was there not even a little bit of love?" A strange expression flickered across Julian's face, as if he'd heard the most ridiculous joke. "What else?" he said. "If it wasn't for the family alliance, if it wasn't a way for me to become the heir to Rhodes Corporation, why do you think I would be with you?" Although she had already suspected the answer, hearing him admit it aloud felt like a mountain crashing down on her chest. It was so heavy, so painful that her vision swam with stars, her blood ran cold, and she felt as if she were about to die. Hazel staggered backward and fell to the floor, her face ashen, completely devoid of life. "Understand now?" Julian looked at her, his eyes filled with nothing but icy contempt and disgust, not a shred of pity. "Since you understand, why don't you get lost? Don't disturb us." "Oh, stop it," Belle giggled coyly and nestled into his arms, and they began to kiss passionately, oblivious to Hazel's presence. Watching them embrace and kiss, Hazel let out a bitter laugh, tears streaming down her face. "Julian Rhodes, as for the last 3 years of my youth, I'll just consider them wasted on a dog." She threw the words at him with all her remaining strength and fled the nauseating room. On this day, she lost her family and her lover. Chapter 4. You'll be the bridesmaid. What else did she have left to lose? Just as she left the room, her phone rang. Seeing the word father on the screen, a sharp pain shot through Hazel's heart. He hadn't shown a moment's hesitation when he had his bodyguards throw her out. Why was he calling now? Remembering their 20 years together, she answered the call with a trembling hand. What if Arthur still saw her as his daughter? Hello, Arthur's impatient voice came through the line. We've discussed it. Although you're not our biological daughter, many of our business partners in the financial world have met you. For the sake of the Everly family's reputation, you must maintain this identity. You are not to speak of what happened today. Hearing Arthur's command, any glimmer of hope in Hazel's heart shattered like a dream. Arthur hadn't called out of concern for her, but for the Everly family's image. But don't think you have any leverage, you have no right to push your luck. We'll announce that Belle is our long-lost daughter. As for you, you can keep the title of Everly heiress and marry some man from the financial world. The Everly family will have done right by you then. Arthur spat out the words coldly and hung up before Hazel could reply. Clatter. Hazel's hand trembled, and the phone slipped from her grasp, falling to the floor and breaking in two. The expression on her face was a twisted mask of laughter and tears. The Everly's blood ties, love. A wave of fury and grief washed over Hazel, and she coughed, a spray of blood splattering from her lips. The blood mixed with the tears on her face, a shocking sight. These were things she, Hazel Everly, was never meant to have. Hey, you got the Everly's orders, didn't you? A cold voice sounded from behind her. Hazel turned to see Julian walking out, his face etched with impatience. He jumped in surprise when he saw her blood-streaked face, but he clearly didn't care. To create an image of sisterly affection, you will live at the Rhodes house until Belle marries me. You will prepare for the wedding as her bridesmaid. With that, he reached out his hand, as if to drag her back to the Rhodes villa. I won't go. Hazel recoiled from his touch, her face a mask of misery. Make me her bridesmaid? Julian Rhodes, do you even have a heart? I loved you for 3 whole years, 3 years, and now you're marrying another woman and you want me to be her bridesmaid. Was he intentionally trying to humiliate her? This cut was too deep. It was grinding her already shattered heart into dust. You tramp, how dare you refuse? Hazel's defiance seemed to exhaust all of Julian's patience. He lunged forward, grabbed a handful of her hair, and began dragging her towards the basement of the Rhodes villa. No, let me go, Hazel struggled, screaming desperately, but it was useless. Julian threw her into the dark, damp room. You don't even deserve a room in the Rhodes house, he said coldly. You can stay here in the basement and wait for the day Belle and I get married. Hazel's back slammed hard against a pile of junk in the basement, and a piercing pain shot through her entire body. She collapsed onto the floor, as helpless as a stray dog dying on the side of the road. As she watched Julian's retreating back, her vision went black, and she finally lost consciousness. Chapter 5. Are you worthy? Splash. A basin of cold water was thrown viciously onto Hazel, shocking her out of her unconscious state. She looked around in a panic, her body aching and weak. Awake! Belle stood at the door, looking down at her with cold eyes. In a commanding tone, she said, If you're awake, stop playing dead on the floor, get up and come with me to try on wedding dresses. The wedding is this afternoon if you don't cooperate. I'm sure the Everly and Rhodes families can make you disappear from the city. Seeing Belle's arrogant demeanor, Hazel felt a bitter sorrow, but resignedly pushed herself up from the floor. The Everly family no longer cared about her, and Julian's heart belonged to Belle. What power did she have to defy these two powerful families? She didn't have the courage to die. At Belle's command, maids roughly tore off Hazel's clothes and forced her into an exaggerated gown. Though a designer brand, it was incredibly old-fashioned. She gave a weak, bitter smile. The Everly family's reputation was truly precious. The two arrived at the bridal shop. Looking at the pure, sacred white gowns, Hazel felt a twisting pain in her heart. You're here. At that moment, a man walked out from within the shop. He was dressed in a pristine white suit with a boutonniere on his lapel. It was clearly the groom, Julian Rhodes. Julian wrapped his arm affectionately around Belle. I had a purely handmade, custom gown flown in from Italy. Go try it on. He snapped his fingers, and an assistant immediately brought out a stunningly beautiful wedding dress. The moment she saw the gown, Hazel nearly fainted. That dress, she had designed it herself, and Julian had promised her he would find the best tailor to create it. He had kept his promise, but the dress wasn't for her to wear. It's beautiful, I love it so much, thank you, Jules, Belle exclaimed, planting a kiss on Julian's cheek before rushing off to change. Julian Rhodes, you truly are the cruelest man alive. Hazel stared at the man in the suit, her heart so pained it was almost numb. The dress you designed is quite beautiful, even the tailor couldn't stop praising it. Even if we're not getting married, we can't let the dress go to waste, can we? Julian said mockingly. What? You want to wear it? This dress is for the true Miss Everly to wear, just look at yourself. Are you worthy? Yes, you're right. I'm not worthy. A lump formed in Hazel's throat. She wanted to cry, but her tears had already run dry. Stripped of her identity as the Everly heiress, she truly was nothing. Hazel had learned this lesson through blood and tears. 20 years of family affection and 3 years of love were worth less than the title of an Everly heiress. Suddenly, Hazel felt that the past 20 years of her life had been nothing but a dream. And now, it was time to wake up. Jules, how do I look? While they were talking, Belle had changed into the wedding dress and was slowly walking out of the fitting room. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful, Julian said, looking at Belle in the dress. For a fleeting moment, a ridiculous thought crossed his mind. Hazel would have looked even more beautiful in it, but he quickly crushed the thought. Hazel was just a gutter snipe. What was she worth? Belle deliberately twirled in front of Hazel. Little sister Hazel, do you think your big sister looks beautiful? Hazel forced herself to look away, to stop staring at the dress being worn by another woman. Chapter 6. I finally found you, Hazel. Your sister is asking you a question. Seeing Hazel avoid the question, Julian's voice turned sinister. Don't forget, if you don't behave, the Rhodes family can make someone like you disappear from Easton City at any time. Beautiful. Hazel ground out the word through clenched teeth. In that instant, she felt something inside her shatter. It was her heart. You're my bridesmaid today. If you see a man you like, I can play matchmaker for you. You should hurry up and find a rich husband while the Everly family is still willing to lend you their name. Ha. Belle laughed wildly, and Hazel's heart turned to ash. The highly anticipated wedding finally began. Do you, Belle Everly, take Julian Rhodes to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part? Listening to the priest's words from the stage, Hazel let out a self-deprecating laugh and drained her glass of red wine. For richer or for poorer? Such vows were utterly ridiculous. Hazel sat in the audience, drinking glass after glass. Her delicate face was bare of makeup, but the alcohol had brought a rosy flush to her cheeks, making her look incredibly alluring, an effect even her dowdy dress couldn't hide. Several men in the room cast interested glances her way. On stage, the couple had finished the ceremony and were now making their toasts. Belle seemed to notice the attention Hazel was receiving. This was her wedding, yet this tramp was stealing the show. Belle's heart burned with rage. She suddenly rushed over to Hazel's side and said coldly, "You just love seducing men, don't you? You love being the center of attention. Fine, today I'll let you have all the attention you want." With that, Belle grabbed her and pulled her in front of a tall, slender figure. "Mr. Sterling," she announced with a smile, "allow me to introduce my sister, Hazel Everly. She's had a crush on you since she was a little girl and has even said she wants to be your wife." As her words fell, the once boisterous wedding reception fell deathly silent. The Sterling family was the #1 family in Easton City. Their power was unshakable. Even the Rhodes family, now allied with the Everlys, couldn't touch them. And everyone knew that the heir to the Sterling family, Ethan Sterling, was famously aloof and held a particular disdain for women who threw themselves at him. For Hazel to so eagerly throw herself at him was surely asking for public humiliation. Hazel had, of course, heard the rumors about Ethan Sterling. Her heart clenched, and she quickly tried to explain, but as she looked up, her eyes met a pair of deep, dark pupils. At the corner of his right eye was a single, teardrop-shaped mole. Seeing that mole, Hazel suddenly froze. That mole, she felt like she had seen it many, many years ago. As Hazel stood there, stunned, a flicker of something crossed Ethan Sterling's eyes. Just as everyone was waiting for him to humiliate her, a gentle smile, one no one had ever seen before, graced his lips. "Your name is Hazel Everly." He looked at the woman before him, her face overlapping with a slightly younger one from years ago. It was definitely her, the girl who had saved him 8 years ago. He had finally found her. Mr. Sterling, I'm so sorry. I've had too much to drink. I didn't mean to bother you, Hazel stammered, completely flustered. But Ethan Sterling, in front of everyone, pulled her into his arms. I've finally found you, he whispered, his voice overflowing with tenderness. Chapter 7. A twist in the tale. What? Belle's reaction was as shocked as everyone else's in the room, including Hazel herself. She stared blankly at the dark hair of Ethan Sterling, inhaling the faint scent of his cologne. His embrace was so strong that for a moment she couldn't break free. You know me? Hazel asked in a small voice. Ethan didn't answer immediately. His usually cold face now held a gentle expression that no one had ever seen before. His well-defined hand slowly stroked her hair, again and again. Of course. He released her, his eyes so full of tenderness she felt she might drown in them. Hazel was dazed and instinctively looked away. My girl, I've finally found you. I've been searching for you for 8 years since that day. I never thought you'd be so close. Oh my God, isn't that Ethan Sterling? Who is that woman? Why is he acting so out of character? That's the Everleigh heiress, Hazel Everleigh. She was supposed to marry the young master of the Rhodes family, but somehow it ended up being Belle Everleigh. I heard this Belle is also an Everleigh heiress, a child who was lost and has now been found. Listening to the chatter, Belle's face flushed red and then turned pale. She had only wanted to embarrass Hazel, but she never imagined that Hazel would be so lucky as to catch Ethan Sterling's eye. The Sterlings were the dragon head of Easton City. Their influence spread throughout the entire region, and Ethan Sterling himself was, without a doubt, a prodigy. As the sole son of the Sterling family, he was born into immense glory. At a young age, he had taken control of all the family's companies, quickly established a foothold in the country, and broken into the Fortune 500. Such brilliance was far beyond what the Rhodes family could ever hope to achieve. Moreover, Ethan Sterling himself was handsome and dashing, the dream man of every woman in Easton City. His every move exuded an elegant and aloof charm that women found irresistible. But the famously cold Ethan Sterling was now hugging a woman in front of so many people, and holding her in his arms. It was strange, far too strange. Belle secretly gritted her teeth, forcing a smile onto her face. Sister, you're so lucky, she said through clenched teeth. I can't believe Mr. Sterling has taken a liking to you. You must seize this opportunity and not mess it up, or someone might snatch him away too. Hazel was still heartbroken. Looking at Belle's face, she felt a fire of rage burning within her. She closed her eyes for a moment, then said, Thank you for the advice. Mr. Sterling and I have no special relationship. I wish you happiness. Happiness? Everything she was witnessing was supposed to have been hers, but now it had all vanished like a soap bubble. Of course, I'll be happy. Belle was so angry her face changed color. She wanted to say more, but she caught Ethan Sterling's cold, intimidating gaze, which frightened her into silence. Just then, Julian Rhodes walked over from the stage. He wrapped his arm around Belle and, looking at Hazel's pale face, sneered, I'm honored that Mr. Sterling could grace my wedding. You may be a formidable force in the business world, Mr. Sterling, but your taste in women is a bit lacking. Hazel froze. She looked up in disbelief, her eyes meeting Julian's. He stared back at her without flinching, his words a clear act of revenge. Chapter 8. So what? What did you say? She never thought Julian would say such a thing. Had he forgotten all the vows they had made to each other? 3 whole years. For 3 years, Julian had doted on her, never once arguing with her or making her sad. He had always greeted her with a smile. But who could have imagined that just because she wasn't a true Everleigh, everything would change? Not just the Everleigh family, but Julian too. The look in his eyes was now filled with disgust, distance, and scorn, no longer the gentleness of before. Hazel lowered her head, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. She sniffled as she heard Julian continue, Mr. Sterling, do you know who this woman is? She's the Everleigh heiress, and also my ex-girlfriend. A woman like this, would you still want her? Don't you want to know why I broke up with her? Julian's tone was filled with mockery, and Hazel's body trembled slightly. She should have known. This 20-year-long dream was over. But why did her heart still ache so much? No, Hazel, you can't cry. From this day on, you have nothing to do with Julian Rhodes or the Everleigh family. You are just you, and that has nothing to do with anyone else. So what? The man's voice was as clear and pleasant as a cool spring. A hand gently tightened around Hazel as if to comfort her. Hazel looked up in surprise, just in time to see Ethan's handsome profile. Ethan, unhurried and with a steady voice, said, "Who she is, what she's been through, I don't care. The fact that she is her is enough for me." Julian had come over expecting to see Ethan shove Hazel away in disgust. He never thought Ethan would act so out of character, not caring in the slightest. In fact, it seemed Hazel was very important to him. When Ethan spoke, the already quiet venue became deathly silent, and everyone heard his words clearly. At that moment, the way people looked at Hazel began to change, some with confusion, some with jealousy, some with fear, and some with amusement. Looking at the varied faces around her, Hazel felt an infinite sense of desolation. For over 20 years, she had been like a flower in a greenhouse, sheltered by the Everly family. Only now did she understand the treachery of the human heart. "Isn't there a wedding to be held?" Ethan said lightly. "Please continue. Don't keep the happy couple waiting." As soon as he finished, the crowd immediately resumed their chatter. Seeing how protective Ethan was of Hazel, Belle gave up on her plan to humiliate her further. She stomped her foot and left, with Julian following closely behind. He gave Hazel a thoughtful look before he too departed. Watching the two of them leave, arms linked, Hazel felt an excruciating pain in her heart. She broke free from Ethan's embrace, picked up a glass of wine, and downed it in one go, coughing from the sting of the alcohol. Ethan's gaze softened as he watched her. Seeing her cough, he frowned slightly and said gently, "Don't drink anymore. You can't handle it, I can." She downed another glass, a burning sensation spreading through her stomach. Tears welled up in her eyes. Through a blurry haze, she watched the newlyweds on the stage, then drank another glass. Chapter 9, A Dance with Me? Why? Why did this misfortune have to happen to her? Why, after too much wine, Hazel was swaying unsteadily. A hand gently wrapped around her waist to keep her from falling, while another hand lightly patted her back. There, Hazel. No more drinking." As the head of the leading family, Ethan Sterling was naturally well informed about everything in Easton City. He knew about the marriage alliance between the Rhodes and Everly families, and he knew the Everlys had found a long-lost daughter. What he hadn't known was that the eldest Everly daughter was the girl he had been searching for all this time. And by the looks of it, his gentle eyes fell on Hazel's flushed face, and a flicker of coldness crossed his gaze. It seemed his treasure had been wronged. "Find out what happened," Ethan said to his assistant, his expression now icy. If he found out anything, Ethan smirked and drained a glass of red wine. "Hazel, wake up." A hand gently patted Hazel's cheek. Under the influence of alcohol, she was already quite drunk. Ethan's black suit jacket was draped over her shoulders while he sat beside her in his white shirt. Hazel had sobered up a little. She quickly sat up and explained frantically, "I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling, I really didn't mean to offend you, I know." Ethan's voice was warm. "It's all right, it's all in the past. Would you like to have a dance with me?" Looking at Ethan's gentle demeanor, Hazel was momentarily lost in thought. Weren't they saying that the heir of the Sterling family was always cold and aloof? Why was he so different today? Hazel came back to her senses. She had intended to refuse, but looking at the elegant, outstretched hand and remembering how he had just saved her from embarrassment, she bit her lip and nodded. She would consider it a way to repay his kindness. Seeing Hazel agree, Ethan was delighted. The gentle smile on his lips deepened as he led her onto the dance floor. Noticing she was unsteady on her feet, he supported her waist with his hand, a very thoughtful gesture. Hazel felt a little dazed, her eyes downcast as she seemed lost in thought. Ethan looked at the girl's fair skin and long eyelashes, his heart filled with a soft tenderness. For so many years, he had never given up, and finally, they had met. Halfway through the dance, Hazel's body began to sway. The after-effects of the alcohol were strong, and her vision blurred. Yet, she could still see the couple on the stage in their pristine white wedding attire. They looked like a match made in heaven. Julian was doting on Belle, just as he had once doted on her, a picture of perfect happiness. Looking at the scene before her, likely due to the alcohol, Hazel couldn't help but start crying. Tears fell, one by one, onto her dress. Ethan said nothing, simply led her to a sofa and sat her down, holding her in his arms. He gently wiped away the tears from her face. Hazel's eyes reflected only Belle and Julian, completely unaware of Ethan's intense gaze fixed on her. She sniffled, telling herself not to cry, but thinking of all that had happened in the past few days, the tears just wouldn't stop. "Don't cry." Ethan wasn't annoyed. This was the girl he had been searching for so long. He couldn't bear to see her sad. Chapter 10, I have no home. He stood up and, wrapping an arm around the sobbing Hazel, led her out of the venue. The moment Ethan and Hazel left, Belle noticed. A flicker of resentment crossed her eyes, and she tightened her arm around Julian's waist. "It's fine, there's plenty of time. Hazel, don't forget, the man you love most now belongs to me." The temperature outside was a bit chilly. Hazel couldn't help but shiver. She sniffled, feeling a little embarrassed, and then it belatedly hit her that the man walking with her was the heir of the Sterling family, Ethan Sterling. At that thought, Hazel jolted. She said to Ethan, "Mr. Sterling, thank you for helping me out today." SHH. Ethan placed a finger on her lips, his deep eyes filled with tenderness. He bent down, gently pressing his lips against hers, and murmured softly, "There's no need for thanks between us. Whatever you want to do, I will do it for you. Whatever you desire, I will fulfill." The man's lips were cool, but Hazel's were even cooler. She was startled and instinctively took a step back, her head lowered, not daring to look at him. Who would believe it? This was the heir of the Sterling family, and he was saying such things to her? Ethan straightened up. His assistant respectfully placed the car keys in his palm. He asked, "Where do you live? I'll take you home." When Hazel didn't answer, Ethan smiled and asked again, "Then where would you like to go?" "Anywhere is fine." Hazel was silent for a moment, then said with a self-deprecating tone, "You can just drop me off wherever you see fit. I don't have a home anymore." Now, she was just a person with no use value. What home could she possibly return to? At this moment, she was nothing more than a stray dog. Ethan's eyes flickered with understanding. He said no more, simply opened the passenger door of the Rolls-Royce and said, "Let's go." Hazel obediently got into the car. Her mind was in a daze. Perhaps the days spent in the road's dark basement had left her feeling unsettled, or perhaps the series of blows had been too much for her to process all at once. But now, in the quiet, she suddenly felt utterly exhausted and just wanted to rest. The car drove on in silence. Neither of them spoke. Hazel had taken off the suit jacket, folded it neatly, and placed it on her lap. She wrapped her arms around herself and leaned against the seat, drifting in and out of sleep. She seemed to be dreaming of the past. She was once again the beloved heiress of the Everly family, Julian's lover, the carefree little princess, basking in happiness and joy. Then the scene shifted. Her father's ugly, contorted face and the image of entangled bodies flashed before her eyes. Their faces were like demons, suffocating her, making her want to escape, but there was no escape. Ethan noticed Hazel's distress. Her breathing, which had been steady, suddenly became rapid. She must be having a nightmare. As the car turned, Ethan headed towards the Sterling family villa. He needed to tell his parents about this, to tell them he had found the girl. He was sure they would be very happy. Chapter 11. The past in Ethan Sterling's villa. Hazel lay sleeping peacefully on the bed. Ethan sat beside her, his hand gently stroking her cheek, his mind replaying the scene of their first meeting 8 years ago. "Don't you dare come any closer." A girl with a ponytail stood protectively in front of a boy huddled in a corner. The boy was covered in bruises, his features delicate. He looked up at the girl shielding him, a strange feeling stirring in his heart. She was the first person to ever protect him like this. Everyone else either feared him, hated him, or was intimidated by him. Only she had dared to take his hand and tell him not to be afraid, that she would protect him. Her clear eyes were seared into his memory like a brand. It had been an assassination attempt. Because he was the heir to the Sterling family, a tall tree that catches the wind. The Sterling family was just like that, feared, but also hated. The young Ethan, for example, was a prodigy at a tender age, which made him a target of jealousy. But only she, in his long and cold life, had held his hand with her warm one, met his blank gaze, and told him, "Don't be afraid, I'll protect you. You must survive." It was in that moment that he seemed to understand something. When he returned to the Sterling family, he was like a different person, no longer reckless, but calm and composed. As the years went by, he still couldn't find her, but the longing in his heart only grew stronger. "Hazel!" Ethan whispered her name, his expression incredibly gentle. This was the girl who had given him hope back then. Perhaps from the moment she took his hand, he had fallen uncontrollably in love with her. Hazel was a light sleeper. Under his gentle touch, she woke up. "Where am I?" Hazel woke up in a daze. The effects of the alcohol had completely worn off. She looked around like a newborn fawn. Ethan let out a soft chuckle and said, "This is my home." Hazel was startled. "Your home?" She scrambled to get up and leave, but Ethan scooped her up and placed her back on the bed. He knelt down and said, "This is my home, and from now on, it will be your home too. Don't run around. I'll be sad if I can't find you." Hazel's eyes widened. She looked at Ethan's exquisite face in disbelief, never imagining that he could be such a gentle person. But she asked doubtfully, "Do you know me? Why are you being so good to me?" Ethan's eyes dimmed slightly. Then he said, "The bath is ready. Go take a shower and then we'll have dinner." Since she doesn't remember, there's no need to bring it up. One day, she will. "Mr. Sterling," Hazel hesitated for a moment, then said, "Thank you for your kindness, but I have to go back." "Go back where?" Ethan said. "You have nowhere to stay right now. Why don't you stay here for the time being? I'm the only one living here, so you don't have to worry. I don't want to be a bother. With me, you never have to be formal." Ethan's gaze was firm and gentle, making it impossible for Hazel to refuse. After a moment of thought, she said, "Thank you for your trouble." The news of Ethan bringing Hazel home caused a sensation throughout Easton City. Everyone was talking about it, speculating about the relationship between the Sterling heir and the Everly heiress. The implication was clear. Chapter 12. His affection. The incident became the talk of the town, with everyone guessing about the relationship between Ethan and Hazel. However, neither of them made any public statements, simply going on with their lives. Over the next few days, Ethan and Hazel grew closer. Hazel was no longer as reserved as she had been. After being abandoned and betrayed, she had shed her former arrogance and become much quieter. She also began to learn about finance with Ethan's guidance. Ethan had previously been known for his aloofness towards women, but since Hazel's arrival, numerous rumors about them had started to circulate. Although Hazel didn't understand why she had suddenly been thrust into this new life, Ethan's intense affection was sometimes overwhelming. "Hazel?" Ethan returned to the villa to find Hazel playing the piano. It was a piano he had bought especially for her. She played beautifully, the melody light and soothing, bringing a sense of peace to the listener. "Ethan, you're back." Their relationship had deepened over the past month, but aware of her humble position, she had never dared to cross the line. Ethan, on the other hand, treated her like a precious treasure. He walked over and stroked her hair. "Did you miss me?" Hazel was silent for a moment, then smiled. "This is a new piece I learned recently. Do you like it?" "I love it." Ethan gently caressed her hair. "You've been cooped up in the villa for days. Let me take you out for some fresh air." "Okay." As the car drove towards the city center and into a luxury residential area, Hazel couldn't help but ask, "Where are we going?" "The family estate." Ethan kept his eyes on the road. "My mother wants to meet you." "What?" Hazel's first instinct was to run. She was shocked. "Why so suddenly? You'll know when you see her." Ethan smiled slightly. Looking at the teardrop-shaped mole at the corner of his eye, Hazel felt an even stronger sense of familiarity, as if she had seen him somewhere long ago. The Sterling family estate was located on the south side of the city center. After renovations, it had become even more exquisite. Ethan opened the car door for Hazel and took her hand, leading her inside. Hazel felt a little uncomfortable and gently pulled her hand away, looking down, unable to meet his eyes. She understood his feelings for her, but her heart was still occupied by that other person. Although time had faded the feelings, a 3-year relationship couldn't be erased just like that. In her heart, she still couldn't bring herself to accept Ethan. She was afraid that Ethan, like Julian, would abandon her. "Mother." Ethan's father had passed away 3 years ago, leaving only his mother, Catherine Sterling, living in the family estate. Despite being his mother, her skin was so well maintained that she looked to be in her early 30s, very youthful. "Hello, ma'am." Hazel summoned her courage and greeted Ethan's mother. Catherine turned her head, and her eyes held no trace of dislike or contempt, only warmth and affection. "You're here." Catherine seemed very pleased and talked a lot with Hazel. Hazel listened obediently, while Ethan sat quietly playing a game of Go by himself, not interrupting. By the time they left the estate, it was completely dark. Hazel leaned back in her seat, feeling drowsy. Ever since being locked in the Rhodes basement for a few days, she had developed a slight fear of the dark and felt sleepy as soon as night fell. Chapter 13, Punishment for You, Ethan, Why Are You So Good to Me? In a drowsy state, Hazel asked the question that had been bothering her for a while. Why had Ethan been so gentle with her from their very first meeting, unlike anyone else? And today, he had even taken her to meet his mother. Why? There's no why, Ethan replied softly, because I want to be good to you, that's all. Hazel wanted to say more, but her eyelids were heavy and she slowly drifted off to sleep. The temperature in the car gradually rose, creating a comfortable and peaceful atmosphere. Ethan's Bluetooth earpiece flashed. He glanced at Hazel, then parked the car and got out. Mr. Sterling, we have all the information. It was his assistant's voice on the other end. Ethan nodded slightly, his expression cold and severe, a stark contrast to the man he had just been. He said concisely, "Come to my office tomorrow." "Yes, sir." "Hazel, don't worry. I will make every single person who bullied you suffer, to the point they'd rather be dead." Meanwhile, news about Belle and Julian was spreading throughout Easton City. Some people reported seeing them at the mall, acting very much in love. Others said that Julian doted on Belle even more than he had on Hazel. Hazel scrolled through her social media feed, suppressing the bitterness in her heart, and put the tablet aside. "It's okay, it's all in the past. Besides, I'm doing well now, aren't I?" That was enough. From that day on, she had nothing to do with Julian Rhodes or the Everly family. Knock, knock, knock. The sound of knocking brought Hazel back to the present. "Come in," she said. Ethan came in with a glass of milk and placed it on her nightstand. He habitually stroked her hair. Still not sleeping? Over the past few days, she had grown accustomed to Ethan's frequent affectionate gestures. She subconsciously nuzzled his hand. "I can't sleep." Ethan's heart softened. His girl had let down her guard and was starting to be affectionate with him. This was a good start. "Something on your mind?" Ethan asked. Hazel shook her head. No, Ethan knew what she was thinking. Through his assistant's investigation a few days ago, he had found out everything the Everly and Rhodes families had done to her, especially the actions of Julian and Belle. "Don't think about it." Ethan gently coaxed Hazel into drinking the milk, which had a calming effect. He let her rest her head on his shoulder and whispered, "I won't let anyone who hurt you get away with it. Hazel, rest assured, you've escaped the nightmare." Hazel gradually closed her eyes. In a daze, she heard Ethan say softly, "You protected me once. Now it's my turn to protect you." The next day, newspapers, news channels, and social media were all buzzing with stories about Ethan and Hazel. It was clear to everyone that Ethan's attitude towards Hazel was unprecedented. Whenever he was with her, he seemed like a different person. Various platforms were scrambling to post photos and articles about them to cash in on the hype. Hazel had a habit of checking the trending topics on social media every day. Ethan would sit beside her, reading a book. When a man was focused, he was at his most handsome. Looking at his profile, Hazel's heart skipped a beat. She felt her face flush and quickly looked away. Chapter 14, A Racing Heart, What's Wrong? Noticing Hazel's gaze, Ethan turned to look at her. He couldn't help but smile when he saw her blushing face. Feeling her heart race, Hazel quickly turned away. "Nothing, these reporters are just writing nonsense, all sorts of things are trending." "You don't like it?" Ethan turned and pinched her cheek. "If you don't like it, I'll have them take it down tomorrow." No, that's not necessary." Hazel explained hastily, but the more she tried, the more flustered she became. She feigned annoyance and tossed the tablet aside. "They're just writing whatever they want anyway. Besides, with your reputation as the sterling heir, they wouldn't dare say anything too bad." Ethan was very pleased with her response. He let out a satisfied sigh. "My Hazel really knows what to say." Hazel fell silent. There was a thorn in her heart that pricked her every time Ethan was gentle with her, making the pain even sharper. Sterling Industries. Ethan was sitting at his desk, looking at some documents, when his assistant knocked and entered. "Mr. Sterling, the manager from Rhodes Corporation, is here. She's in the reception room now." Ethan responded with a simple grunt and said nothing more. His assistant, Liam Foster, hesitated for a moment, then reminded him in a low voice, "Sir, Rhodes Corp is the second largest company after ours. Their manager is here, shouldn't we see her?" Tell her to leave. Ethan didn't answer directly. He put down the document, his face cold. Having been with Ethan for several years, Liam understood his temperament. He didn't dare say more, picked up the documents, and left respectfully. Just a dog on its last legs. A gentle squeeze is all it would take to finish it. Ethan looked at an email on his computer, a cruel smile playing on his lips. Reception room. I'm sorry, Miss Everly, the president is not seeing any visitors today. Please come back another time. Liam offered Belle a professional smile. Belle, who was holding a cup of coffee, paused. What did you say? The president is not seeing any visitors today, Liam repeated mechanically. Belle's eyes narrowed, her hand tightening around the coffee cup. After marrying Julian, she had joined Rhodes Corp., but to her disappointment, she was only a general manager. She had used this collaboration as an excuse to visit Ethan, wanting to see what the legendary President Sterling was like in person. If Hazel could catch Ethan's eye, why couldn't she? But Ethan had rejected her, and with such a flimsy excuse, all right, I understand. Belle suppressed her anger. Thank you. Please tell President Sterling I'll visit again another time. She was in no position to provoke Ethan right now. No one in Easton City dared to say no to him. Angering him now would do her no good. It's fine. Since there's already a connection through Hazel, their story isn't over yet. There's still time. She refused to believe that with her charms, Ethan wouldn't be interested in her at all. It was probably just because they hadn't met in person yet. With that thought, Belle felt much better. She regained her usual arrogant confidence and strode out of Sterling Industries in her high heels. Chapter 15. Hitting a wall in the office, Ethan's gaze was fixed on a photo frame. It was a picture of Hazel's back that he had secretly taken when they were out a few days ago. He had printed it and kept it on his desk ever since. A smile touched Ethan's lips, but it quickly faded as he remembered something, his expression turning cold. Belle, that woman coming to visit. He didn't need to be a genius to know what she wanted, but such an ugly, dirty woman would never catch his eye. The Rhodes family had only risen to prominence in recent years. To think they could be on par with the Sterlings was a bit too ambitious. Just because they had grown stronger lately, they thought they had secured their position. How laughable. When Ethan returned home, Hazel was in the living room fiddling with something. She smiled gently when she saw him. Ethan, you're back. Look, when Hazel smiled, her eyes curved like a crescent moon. She was holding a small cactus. I heard cacti can protect against radiation. I tried planting one a few days ago. It'll be perfect next to your computer, Hazel said with a grin. Ethan smiled back. Thank you for the trouble. I'm just idle at home all day anyway. Hazel walked over to take Ethan's coat, but he stopped her with one hand. He scooped her up in his arms, and with a small gasp, she found herself gently placed on the sofa. The whole of Easton City knows about our relationship now. You don't need to worry about the rumors. You've been studying finance, haven't you? I happen to have a vacant secretary position at my company. Want to come work with me? Hazel hesitated. After all this time, she understood what kind of person Julian was, but the 3 years of affection and his past tenderness were hard to forget. It was a hurdle for her, a low one, but one she couldn't seem to cross. I'll study a bit more. Hazel forced a smile. After all, I've just started learning about this. If I go to your company now, it might cause gossip. Ethan didn't say anything. He always respected her wishes. Hazel then said, I want to have hot pot. Walking down the street together, they inevitably drew attention, especially since they were the talk of the town. Even though Hazel had made Ethan wear sunglasses, his cold and unapproachable aura was impossible to hide. Look, that man is so handsome. Is he a celebrity out for a meal with his manager? I don't think so. Celebrities usually make a big fuss when they go out. They don't look like that. Maybe he's some rich heir. Hearing this, Hazel couldn't help but laugh. Ethan held her hand. What's so funny? They think you're a rich heir, Hazel giggled. In a way, Ethan really was a rich heir, but he was nothing like those playboys who only cared about women. Hazel's heart started to pound again. She looked down, feeling her face burn. The hot pot restaurant they went to was one of the Sterling family's branches. There were only a few tables occupied. Hazel had never been out for hot pot with Ethan before. Seeing the gossipy and envious glances from the other girls, a strange feeling filled her heart. Chapter 16. Childhood sweetheart. It was a little sweet, a little smug, and yet it made her want to run away. President Sterling. The manager of the hot pot restaurant recognized Ethan at a glance and hurried over with a fawning smile. "Mr. Sterling, what brings you here?" "Just checking on the business." Hazel looked at Ethan in surprise. This restaurant was his. She had been here a few times with her friends and thought the food was good, so she brought him here. She never expected. Surprised? Ethan looked at Hazel. She shook her head. No, she hadn't realized the Sterling family's businesses were so widespread. How had she not known before? Oh, right. Before, she had been like a canary in a cage. How could she have known about these things? When she was still the great heiress of the Everly family, she had been the one who was pampered. She had many friends back then, but she hadn't realized they were only close to her because of her status. Now, she had finally woken up from her dream, only to find herself a stray dog. Lost in her thoughts, Hazel didn't even notice when the hot pot arrived. Ethan tapped the table. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." By now, Hazel had let her guard down around Ethan. After 2 months together, she knew he genuinely cared for her, though she still didn't know why. "I was just thinking about the past." Ethan smiled but didn't say much. He knew that some things belonged to Hazel alone. Even though he loved her deeply, he couldn't interfere with her emotions. "Excuse me, Mr. Sterling." The manager suddenly rushed over, looking flustered. He saw that Ethan was talking to Hazel and hesitated, but still said, "There's a guest waiting for you in the front lobby. She says she's an old friend of yours." "I'll go see." Ethan's eyes flickered. He gave Hazel a quick instruction and then left with the manager. It was her. Front lobby. "Where's Ethy? Why isn't he here yet?" A girl with pigtails, wearing a little black dress and high heels, looked every bit the part of a wealthy young lady. She blinked her big, watery eyes and stood on her toes, peering around. Soon, her look of impatience turned to one of delight. "Ethy," seeing the girl run towards him, Ethan frowned and held out a hand to stop her. "What are you doing here?" "Kiki missed you, so I came back." Kiki Vance took the opportunity to hug Ethan's arm and nuzzle against him. "Ethy, why do you look so unhappy to see me?" "Since you know, I don't need to say it again." Ethan called his assistant. "Book a flight from Easton to France for tomorrow morning." "I'm not going," Kiki tugged at Ethan's arm. "I worked so hard to get away." "I'm not going back." Ethan looked down at her, his eyes as cold as if he were looking at a stranger. "Let go." His voice was like ice, but Kiki was used to his personality. She was Ethan's childhood friend. They had grown up together. From birth, Ethan had been a quiet and serious child, his cold demeanor making him unapproachable. She had long grown accustomed to it. Chapter 17, a rival appears. "I won't let go." Kiki continued to act spoiled. "Ethy, take me out to play. I haven't been back in so long. I don't know what's fun here anymore." "I'll have my assistant take you." Ethan effortlessly pried Kiki's hand away. His gaze fell on Hazel behind the glass screen, who was enthusiastically dipping a piece of lamb into the pot. "Don't go." When her pleading failed, Kiki started shouting, "I came back for you. You're not allowed to go anywhere. You have to stay with me." But Ethan paid her no mind, walking straight towards Hazel. "Ethy, come back." Kiki stomped her foot and followed him. Hazel had just placed a piece of tripe in the pot when she heard the distinct sound of Ethan's high-end leather shoes on the floor, accompanied by a woman's incessant chatter. "Ethy, where are you going?" "Wait for Kiki." Hazel looked up. Ethan had already sat down opposite her, and a girl with pigtails and a striking aura was following close behind. The girl's eyes landed on her, a sharp glare that looked like it could eat her alive. "Who are you? Why are you having dinner with Ethy?" Hazel was taken aback and looked at Ethan, as if asking for an explanation. Before Ethan could speak, Kiki answered her own question. "Oh, I know you. You're that Everly heiress whose fiancé was stolen by her sister, right? I heard you were even kicked out of your house. What, did you run to Ethy to play the victim?" Kiki looked at Hazel smugly. Ethan's eyes suddenly turned cold, and Kiki shivered but remained silent, stubbornly staring at Hazel. Her words hit a nerve, like a freshly healed wound being stabbed again. But after all the pain and betrayal she had been through, she found that such words didn't hurt as much anymore. They were just annoying and grating. Hazel slowly wiped her lips and with a slight smile looked at Kiki. "Judging by all your luggage, you must have come from far away, right? How is it that you heard about me being kicked out, but not about your Ethy's new relationship?" The smug expression on Kiki's face vanished. She glared at Hazel, who met her gaze without fear. It seems you don't pay much attention to your Ethy after all. At least I can play the victim in front of him and get him to look at me. That's better than someone who's never even been in his sights. Ethan couldn't help but smile at her prickly demeanor. At home, she was always so gentle. He had never seen the sharp-tongued side of her, and it made him even more captivated. Now he wasn't worried about Kiki bullying her, because Kiki wouldn't get any advantage here. "What did you say?" Kiki shrieked. "What do you mean?" "Exactly what it sounds like." Hazel remained calm and composed. Kiki stomped her foot. "Ethy, I'm full." Ethy, the name gave her goosebumps. "All right, let's go home then." Ethan immediately stood up and draped his coat over Hazel's shoulders. His gentle and attentive gesture made Kiki want to scream. "Ethy," as she spoke, Ethan wrapped his arm around Hazel and walked past her. Kiki froze for a second, then turned and shrieked uncontrollably. "What is your relationship with that woman?" Chapter 18. The explanation, but the only answer she received, was the sound of footsteps fading into the distance. Full and sleepy, Hazel leaned against the car window, acting as if the earlier incident had never happened, and closed her eyes to rest. It was impossible not to be curious about the relationship between that woman and Ethan, but she and Ethan had no official relationship, so what right did she have to ask? Her earlier bravado was just because she found the woman annoying and wanted to shut her up. "She's my childhood friend." Ethan glanced at her. Seeing her silence, he thought she was angry and took the initiative to explain. "We grew up together, went to the same school. But in my eyes, she's just like any other woman. I'm not interested." Hazel didn't respond, just let out a lazy yawn. "I'm tired. Go to sleep." However, when the car pulled up to the villa, Ethan frowned. A crowd of reporters had gathered downstairs, waiting for them with cameras ready. As Ethan's car approached, they swarmed forward, the flashes of their cameras making Hazel groan and wake up. The sight instantly sobered her. What's going on? Why were there so many reporters? Probably the work of a certain young lady. Ethan didn't need to think to know who was behind it. Hazel realized it too. It was probably the girl from the hot pot restaurant. She couldn't believe she had brought reporters all the way here. "Come to the villa, yes, now disperse them." Ethan hung up the phone and said calmly, "We'll have to wait." "What?" Hazel didn't understand what he meant. Ethan stroked her face gently. "I asked my assistant to call security to disperse these reporters. We'll have to wait a bit." But the reporters were sharp-eyed and spotted Hazel in the passenger seat. They swarmed over like a hive of bees, their voices piercing through the car window. "President Sterling, is the woman in the car the disgraced Everly heiress? What is your current relationship? Are you two living together now that you've brought her back? What are your thoughts on her being the ex-fiancé of the Rhodes family's sole son? Rumor has it you're not interested in women. Is your relationship with the Everly heiress a business arrangement? There are rumors of a close relationship between you and your assistant. President Sterling, are there questions about your orientation?" Hazel's face turned pale. She quickly looked at Ethan. Men were most sensitive about this, and now this reporter had asked it so bluntly. Wasn't this a direct slap in the face to Ethan? Sure enough, Ethan, who had been calm, suddenly opened his eyes. The temperature in the car seemed to drop instantly. Hazel shivered and said softly, Don't listen to their nonsense. Reporters are just naturally gossipy." Ethan didn't say anything. He just took Hazel's hand and then suddenly opened the car door. "He's out, President Sterling is out. It really is the Everly heiress, Hazel Everly, Miss Everly, may I ask? If you have any questions, you can ask me." When Ethan spoke, the cold aura he exuded silenced the reporters. They looked at each other, clearly intimidated by him. Chapter 19. The interview after all, Ethan Sterling was the crown prince of Easton City. They had all heard of his methods. With a single word, he could make everyone present disappear, even banishing them from Easton City forever. After a moment of silence, someone finally mustered the courage to ask loudly, "Mr. Sterling, what is your relationship with Miss Everly? Are you currently living together?" Hazel froze for a moment, then found herself pulled into Ethan's embrace. The man's arms were strong, and perhaps because she didn't want to struggle, she leaned against him quietly, listening to the steady, unwavering beat of his heart. Suddenly, a sense of panic washed over her. What's happening to me? Why, after only 2 months, do I no longer reject Ethan? She's my girlfriend. She heard Ethan's calm, pleasant voice, strong and clear, as he answered the reporter's question. The reporter seemed to let out a sigh of relief. Ethan's earlier silence had been like an invisible weight, almost crushing him. Thankfully, Ethan had finally answered. Girlfriend. President Sterling has a girlfriend? Yeah, that's incredible. I never thought President Sterling would be in a relationship. I really thought there was something wrong with his orientation. Hazel suddenly looked up, her eyes reflecting only Ethan's image, filled with utter astonishment. Ethan patted her back, as if to say, "Don't be afraid." Facing the flashing lights and the clamoring reporters, Hazel felt as if all the sound around her had ceased. All that was left was the sound of her own breathing and the steady beat of Ethan's heart. Thump, 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 thump. No, that seemed to be her own heartbeat. Hazel snapped back to reality. She bit her lip and said nothing, letting the reporters' excitement build as they raised their cameras. The flashes stung her eyes, but she didn't notice, as if she were in a trance. It wasn't until the security guards arrived and escorted the reporters away that Ethan looked down at her. Hazel was staring into space, lost in thought. When he instinctively reached out to touch her face, she pulled away. Ethan's hand froze. The woman's distant, unfamiliar gaze stabbed at his heart. Even so, he managed a gentle smile, took her hand, and led her into the villa. Are you angry? Ethan knelt in front of Hazel. Her eyes were blank and unfocused. It took a long moment for her to come back to herself. No, I'm not. Ethan said nothing. After a pause, Hazel couldn't help but say, I'm sorry, Why are you apologizing? Ethan took Hazel's face in his hands. His intense gaze made her want to look away, but he turned her head back, forcing her to look at him. Hazel, what are you thinking? Hazel hesitated, then finally said, I'm sorry, Ethan. I know you've been very good to me, but you know what I've been through. You must know. After all that pain, I can't trust someone again. I can't love someone with that much devotion anymore. Hazel tried to phrase her words as gently as possible. After she finished, she lowered her head, avoiding Ethan's tender gaze, unable to look at him. Ha! Hazel looked at Ethan in surprise. You're not angry? Chapter 20. The woman I love, of course I'm angry. Ethan pinched Hazel's nose. The woman I love is still hung up on her scumbag ex right in front of me. How could I not be angry? Then, why are you? Didn't they say the young master of the Sterling family was ruthless and cruel? Why is he? I know you don't love him anymore. Ethan smiled faintly. Otherwise, you wouldn't have said these things to me. When a person has truly let go, they often don't care anymore. The man stood up and sat down on the sofa. I'm serious. You're my first girlfriend and you'll be my last. What? Hazel's eyes widened in disbelief at what she had just heard, but Ethan nodded with extra seriousness. Yes, you're my only girlfriend. I thought you knew all along, from the day I brought you home. I didn't realize you were so clueless that you hadn't noticed you already belonged to me. The more Hazel listened, the more something felt off. What do you mean? Seeing Hazel's confused look, Ethan's mood lifted considerably. What are you thinking? I won't touch you until you agree, but I'm serious. Hazel had never seen this side of Ethan. In front of her, he had always been gentle, but everyone said Ethan was a formidable man, far beyond ordinary. Yet in her presence, he was just a gentle man. The man's eyes were beautiful, as clear and brilliant as glazed glass. What would they look like when he was cold and indifferent? With that thought, Hazel couldn't help but reach out and gently touch Ethan's eyes. His eyelashes fluttered, and then he broke into a charming smile, nuzzling her palm like a puppy. Startled by her own action, Hazel quickly pulled her hand back. I'm sorry, It's okay. Ethan said, with me, you never have to say you're sorry. Because whatever you do is right. Even if you killed me, you would still be right. The man's expression was stubborn and earnest. Hazel didn't know how to respond and just mumbled, I'm sorry. Ethan smiled with a hint of resignation. Haven't you always wanted to see Van Gogh's The Starry Night? It's in the art studio on the 3rd floor right now. Want to go see it? Okay. A light appeared in Hazel's eyes, and she followed behind Ethan. Just run away, hide in my own world. That way, no one can hurt me. This painting, is it the original? Hazel had a strong artistic sense and loved to paint. But back then, her father had insisted she learn dance, saying it would refine her posture, though it was probably just to better please a future husband. Hazel found it ironic, but the starry night before her captured her full attention, pushing all her unpleasant thoughts away. The entire canvas was dominated by shades of blue, with golden stars shining brightly. The combination of just these two colors was breathtakingly beautiful. A strange light danced in Hazel's eyes, and she couldn't help but gently touch the painting. What a magnificent work of art, such a beautiful starry night, yet she had never taken the time to truly appreciate it. "Let's watch the stars from the rooftop tonight." The words slipped out before Hazel could stop them. They were just a thought in her mind, and she felt a little embarrassed for saying them out loud. "Okay." Chapter 21. The stars no sooner said than done. Ethan had a bed placed on the roof and a simple glass room constructed, just big enough for two people to lie down and watch the stars without getting too cold. That evening, Hazel grabbed the DSLR camera she had prepared, and they climbed up to the roof together. Two temporary housekeepers who were cleaning saw this and couldn't help but sigh from below. "We've been working in this villa for 4 or 5 years now, haven't we?" "Yes, but have you ever seen Mr. Sterling act so childish? Like a little kid? Never. Mr. Sterling is always so cold and serious around us. This is the first time I've ever seen him smile. My daughter heard that the young Master Sterling is handsome and has been dreaming of me bringing her here to see him. Looks like that's impossible now. What are you talking about, a man as outstanding as Mr. Sterling? Only Miss Everleigh is worthy of him." While the housekeepers were marveling below, Hazel lay on the bed above, gazing at the myriad of stars in the sky. The moonlight illuminated her face, making her look exceptionally gentle. "I can't believe you actually built a glass room on the villa roof," Hazel exclaimed. "This must be the advantage of being rich." "I'm not a rich person," Ethan said. "I'm only ranked in the 300s globally. Isn't that something to be proud of? My family's business isn't even half as prosperous as yours." Hazel stopped mid-sentence. She gave a self-deprecating smile. "No, the Everleigh family. The funny thing is, I only know I'm not their biological daughter. I don't even know whose child I am. Was there anyone more tragic in this world than her? When I was in elementary school, there was a classmate," Hazel murmured. "That boy was always alone, never played with us. Even the teachers avoided him. One time, at a parent-teacher conference, all our parents came, but his didn't. The teacher was very angry and made him call his mother. But when the call connected, the teacher's face turned bright red." Ethan played with a strand of Hazel's hair, listening to her talk to herself. Hazel paused, then continued. "Because on that call, the teacher heard his mother with a man, making lewd sounds. In front of so many people, his mother could be doing something like that and still ask her son what was wrong. Later, when I grew up, I learned that his mother worked in a bar. Her price was high, but the men she was with were different every day." Hazel looked up. "Thinking about it now, I don't feel so pitiful anymore. That boy probably will never know who his father is or which combination of men and women produced him. Compared to him, although I'm in a mess, I haven't had such an experience. I'm already very fortunate." Ethan said nothing. Just then, Hazel's eyes lit up. "Look, that star is so bright." "Yes, it's very bright." Ethan looked into Hazel's eyes. They had transformed from the dullness of their first meeting to being full of life. He knew she would get through this. "Hazel." Chapter 22. His kiss. When Hazel turned her head, Ethan cupped the back of it and brought his lips to hers. The kiss, slightly cool, caught her off guard. She wanted to push him away, but her hands against his chest had no strength. "This is fine." Hazel closed her eyes. Maybe this was the only way to balance the guilt she felt towards Ethan. The man's breathing grew heavy, but he only kissed her lips, leaving them slightly swollen and very alluring. "Let's just watch the stars." Ethan's voice was low and raspy. Damn it. The next day, when Hazel woke up, Ethan was sleeping beside her, but both of them were fully clothed. One of his hands was resting on her waist. Hazel tried to move, and Ethan opened his eyes. "Good morning." Hazel felt a little awkward. The man closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again, the sleepiness was gone. Were the stars beautiful? Very beautiful. Although Ethan had been in no mood to watch the stars after kissing her last night, they had stayed up late before coming down to sleep. By then, Hazel had been exhausted, and Ethan had carried her steadily down the folding ladder. Knock, knock, knock. Early in the morning, the housekeeper had already prepared breakfast. Hazel pulled the covers over her head. Ethan, remarkably calm, said, "Come in." Mr. Sterling, a man claiming to be Miss Everleigh's father, is outside and wishes to see her. Ethan didn't say anything, but he could feel Hazel's body tense up under the covers. Tell him to leave. Ethan's voice was cold. And tell him this is my private residence. If he trespasses again, the Everleigh family's properties might just change hands. Don't. Hazel suddenly poked her head out from under the covers. The morning grogginess was gone, replaced by a pale complexion. Let me see him. It's time to make a clean break with the past. All right, no rush. Let's have breakfast first. Ethan then said to the housekeeper, Mrs. Lee, have them wait on the first floor. Yes, sir. Throughout breakfast, Hazel was distracted. Ethan saw this and gently tapped her head with his finger. Eat. Hazel paused, then suddenly put down her chopsticks and fell silent. Ethan knew what she was thinking and didn't say much. He just took her to the walk-in closet, chose an outfit for her, and then started combing her hair. You need to know, you are now my, Ethan Sterling's, girlfriend. My woman has every right to be proud. Ethan's voice held a hint of authority, but his hands moved gently through Hazel's hair. So, no matter what you say or do, you are right. Even if you are wrong, you are still right. Hazel slowly looked up, the fog of confusion in her eyes gradually clearing. Okay. Arthur Everleigh and his wife, Beatrice, had been waiting on the first floor for a long time, along with Belle and Julian. As time wore on, expressions of impatience began to appear on Julian's and Belle's faces. It was only then that Hazel, with Ethan's arm around her waist, descended from the second floor. President Sterling. Chapter 23. Reclaiming a daughter, Arthur Everleigh offered a humble greeting, but Ethan completely ignored him. Instead, he led Hazel to the sofa and stood behind her, arranging her hair. His gentle demeanor was so out of character that everyone present stared at him in disbelief. Having been snubbed, Arthur wasn't discouraged. He turned to Hazel and said, Hazel, are you doing okay? Seeing Arthur's suddenly paternal expression, Hazel's eyes stung, and she almost burst into tears. But remembering how he had treated her, she forced them back. I'm fine, Mr. Everleigh. No need for your concern. Hazel, must you be like this? Beatrice cried out first, then covered her face and sobbed. You have no idea how much your mother has missed you these past 2 months. I dream of you every night. Hazel's heart wavered slightly. Then she heard Beatrice continue, and your sister, she misses you terribly too. She's always asking me when you'll come home. Hazel said nothing. Belle, though reluctant, saw Ethan intently combing Hazel's hair and, as if making a decision, squeezed out a few tears. She put on a sorrowful expression. Yes, sister, you have no idea how much I miss you. Today, she had deliberately put on makeup to look frail and pitiful. Combined with her expression, she was sure Ethan would be drawn to her. However, the reality was a slap in the face. Ethan didn't even look at her. To be precise, he didn't even lift his eyelids, continuing to comb Hazel's hair as if she were the only person in the world. Sister, Belle was wrong. Belle suddenly burst into tears. Belle shouldn't have come back to the Everleigh family, leaving you with nowhere to go, forcing Mr. Sterling to take you in. This isn't taking her in. At this point, Ethan finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. It was I who begged her to come, and she finally agreed. The words that were about to come out of Belle's mouth turned into a gasp of surprise. She looked at Hazel in astonishment. How is that possible? How could she have such power? No, that can't be right. Sister is so kind, how could she not agree to Mr. Sterling's request? Belle said, unwilling to give up. Hazel felt nauseous, looking at her disgusting performance. Julian had been silent the whole time. Hazel glanced at him for a second before looking away. A faithless man like him was no longer worth her time. Though Hazel thought this, Julian did not. Seeing Hazel's elegant and radiant appearance, Julian suddenly felt that Belle was worlds apart from her. Enough with the crying. Hazel watched as Beatrice and Belle sobbed their hearts out, while Arthur put on his loving father act. She felt sick to her stomach. Her fingers dug into her palms as she said coldly, Stop acting. You know exactly what you did to me. Who are you putting on this show for now? Ethan Sterling? Sister, what are you talking about? Belle hated Hazel with a passion, but at this moment, she had to play the victim. Sister, I didn't do anything. Didn't you? Didn't you lock me in the basement with Julian? Didn't you climb into his bed? Chapter 24. Hazel's coldness. Belle fell silent, biting her lip hard, her eyes filled with hatred for Hazel. But Hazel met her gaze without fear and continued, speaking to the group of hypocrites, "Are you here for me? Or for Ethan Sterling? If I weren't living here today, you probably wouldn't care even if I were dead." "Oh, my dear Hazel, what unlucky words are you speaking?" Beatrice shrieked like a hen that had just laid an egg, her tears streaming down her face as she looked at Hazel. "Mama knows she was wrong. Mama shouldn't have let your father kick you out. Now your parents regret it. Come home. Everyone at home welcomes you." The hypocrisy was suffocating. Hazel looked at their false faces, and the anger inside her almost made her laugh. A fire of rage burned in her chest, fueled by her grievances, resentment, unwillingness, and sorrow. These were her so-called parents when she had no use value. They cast her aside. Now that they knew Ethan Sterling was behind her, they were eager to pick her up again. Ethan gently patted her shoulder. He had been silent the whole time, but he knew this whole "finding our daughter" act was for his benefit. He already knew exactly what kind of people they were, but this was Hazel's business, so he wouldn't interfere unless she wanted him to. "Home?" Though she was furious, her eyes reddened against her will, tears welling up. Hazel dug her nails into her palms to keep from screaming. She couldn't forget what she had been through: her parents' abandonment, the cruel truth, and her lover's betrayal. "What is a home?" Hazel almost laughed. The faces before her were as nauseating as demons. "You never treated me like a daughter. I was just a bargaining chip. How can a bargaining chip have a home?" "That's enough," Arthur roared. Even though she had no connection to these people anymore, Hazel's body still trembled. A hand gently rested on her shoulder. Arthur, however, scowled. "Hazel, we came to get you out of concern. Don't go too far. Do you think you're so noble?" Hazel sneered. "You personally sent your own long-lost daughter to her brother-in-law's bed. How noble are you? Don't you forget what you've done? Do you know how I lived after you kicked me out? Do you care? You only care about yourself." Hazel, Arthur's face flushed red, his secret exposed. He wanted to lose his temper with Hazel as he used to, but seeing the increasingly cold look in Ethan's eyes behind her, he forced himself to soften his tone. "Hazel, Dad came this time to take you home. You must have missed home while living at Mr. Sterling's, right? Thank you for your concern, but I'm doing very well here." Hazel's words were a direct slap in Arthur's face. "Don't call me so intimately, Mr. Everly. I have nothing to do with the Everly family anymore, don't I? You already announced that to the world when you held a press conference to introduce your biological daughter." Arthur was at a loss, not expecting Hazel to be so ungrateful. Beatrice, quick-witted, tugged at Belle's sleeve, and the two women started wailing. "Sister, I'm sorry. I really know I was wrong, but Julian and I are truly in love, and I believe you'll understand. You've already given us your blessing, haven't you?" Chapter 25. He regretted it. Seeing Julian's emotionless eyes, Hazel felt a wave of nausea. She looked away, no longer in the mood to listen to their nonsense. "Enough. I don't want to talk about this with you anymore. Since we have no relationship, let's go our separate ways and live our own lives." She could live well on her own. That was enough. She needed nothing else. Having seen through their hypocrisy, how could she dare to hope for genuine affection? Hazel closed her eyes. Her heart was soft, so soft that a single word could shatter it. Her heart was also hard, so hard that it was indestructible, even to the point of being able to turn away the people who had raised her for 20 years without hesitation. After speaking, Hazel stood up on her own. She was afraid that if she stayed any longer, she would break down in tears. Right now, she just wanted to escape, to get as far away from here as possible. She wasn't made of stone. How could she be indifferent? But she couldn't show any weakness, or she would surely soften and become their bargaining chip once again. Ethan glanced at them coolly, a strange look in his eyes that made Arthur, who met his gaze, tremble. Suddenly, Arthur couldn't utter a single word. Was this the aura of the Sterling heir? Was it only because he was with Hazel that he hadn't shown his true power? "Hazel," just then, a thud sounded from behind her. Hazel turned in shock to see Beatrice kneeling on the floor, her face streaked with tears as she begged, "Hazel, come back. Mama really misses you. The family can't be without you." Hazel's heart wavered. She looked at Beatrice hesitantly, then hardened her resolve. "Mom, this is the last time I will call you that. Whether what you said today was sincere or not, I thank you and Mr. Everly for raising me. But I will not go back." Seeing Hazel in this state was something Julian had never witnessed before. The girl before him seemed to have been reborn exquisite, elegant, cold, and captivating. Tall and gracefully dressed, was this the same Hazel he once knew? He had never seen her look so alluring. Strangely, his steady heart began to pound. Julian suddenly felt a pang of regret. Why hadn't he noticed her beauty before? Now that she no longer belonged to him, he finally realized how charming she was. No, there was still a chance. She must still love him. If he was willing to go back to her, he believed Hazel would surely come back to his side. With that thought, a confident smile appeared on Julian's lips. However, Hazel didn't spare him a single glance. Julian assumed she was still angry, and that's why she was ignoring him, and he had already made up his mind. After having the housekeeper escort Hazel upstairs, Ethan finally turned around. The tenderness and doting expression on his face had vanished, replaced by a chilling coldness and ferocity. He looked at them and said flatly, "Hazel does not want to go back, so don't waste your energy. You are not welcome here. Leave." Julian had been wanting to leave for a while, so he stood up and left without a word. Arthur quickly followed. Only Beatrice and Belle remained. Seeing that she was alone with Ethan, Belle looked at his face, which was far more exquisite than Julian's, and couldn't help but be mesmerized. Chapter 26. A warning. This was Ethan Sterling. Just as they said, he was both aloof and captivating, making it impossible to look away. Belle greedily gazed at Ethan's face. He frowned slightly, and with just a glance, she snapped back to reality and shivered. Sometime during this, Beatrice had also left. Belle hesitated for a moment, then flicked her hair back in a seductive gesture. "Hello, Mr. Sterling, I'm Belle Everly. We've met." Ethan ignored her and turned to go upstairs. Seeing Ethan ignore her, Belle felt a sense of frustration, but it was accompanied by an unprecedented desire to conquer. The more dismissive Ethan was of her, the more Belle's heart itched, eager to see her own reflection in his beautiful, glass-like eyes. "Don't you want to know about Hazel and Julian's past relationship?" They were about to get engaged. Ethan paused. Belle's heart leaped with joy. "So, as long as I mention that woman, weren't they, until you came along and stole him away?" A strange smile appeared on Ethan's face. "Thank you for taking a scumbag off her hands. A scumbag and a scummy woman are a perfect match. In that regard, you two are two of a kind." The confident smile on Belle's face froze. "What did you say? You don't understand?" Ethan frowned, looking at her as if she were something disgusting. "Don't appear before me again, and don't try to get close to me. Don't use your pathetic acting skills to get my attention. I have no interest in you. In fact, I find you utterly repulsive. Don't make me take everything away from you before you understand what regret is." With that, Ethan turned and went upstairs without a backward glance. "Show our guest out." Belle's hands clenched into tight fists, her face alternating between red and white as she watched Ethan's retreating back, a mixture of love and hate in her heart. "Ethan Sterling, how could you not be interested in me? How am I not as good as Hazel? Why is this happening? Is it just because of that prettier face?" But no one answered her. When Ethan returned upstairs, Hazel was sitting quietly in front of an easel. It was a painting she had started a few days ago, a simple portrait of a happy family of 3, looking very harmonious. Hazel's eyes were closed, and she didn't even notice Ethan's approach. Suddenly, she grabbed the palette and hurled it at the canvas. Instantly, the painting of the smiling family was smeared with hideous colors, becoming ugly and distorted. Hazel's chest heaved as she gasped for breath, then she covered her face and sobbed. What had she done wrong? Why, after all this time, did her parents still want to use her? Ethan sighed, then knelt down and wiped away her tears. "Don't cry, they're gone. If you're angry, I'll make the Rhodes and Everly corporations disappear from Easton City forever. How about that?" Hazel said nothing, just buried her face in Ethan's shoulder and wailed. Lost in her grief, she didn't notice the icy frost in Ethan's eyes or the deep pain he felt for her. "Hazel, don't worry. Just give me a little more time. Soon, very soon, the Rhodes and Everly corporations will be gone for good," Hazel cried until she was exhausted and drifted off to sleep. Ethan stood by the bed, then dialed his assistant's number. Chapter 27. A new beginning. How's the investigation going? "Mr. Sterling, the Rhodes family's illegal arms dealing is very well covered, leaving no traces. Besides, they're not the only ones involved. A full investigation would likely uncover many other branches, which could be detrimental to our future development. We've reached a temporary balance with them, and disrupting it now might do as I say. A smirk played on Ethan's lips. Balance, the so-called balance, is just them eyeing us from the shadows. Even without this, we would have had to tear off this facade sooner or later. Yes, Mr. Sterling. The next day, Hazel woke up early and took out the study materials she hadn't touched in days. When Ethan came downstairs, she closed her book and said to him, "Ethan, Hazel, I want to start a new life." There was no longer any pain or resentment in Hazel's eyes. After yesterday, she had let it all go. When Arthur and Beatrice came, they had destroyed the last bit of warmth in her heart. "I want to find a job and work hard. It's not right for me to be a freeloader in your house all the time." Hazel stuck out her tongue playfully. Ethan was too good to her, so good that it made her feel uncomfortable and unable to repay him. The only thing she could do was to stop being a burden. "This is your home," Ethan said earnestly. "Me, this house, even Sterling Industries, it's all yours if you want it." "There you go again." Hazel blushed, her heart starting to beat faster against her will. She looked away. Ethan smiled and said, "I happen to have a vacant secretary position at my company. You've been studying for it lately, haven't you? Why don't you come work for me? I can look out for you." Seeing that Ethan didn't mention her finding a new place to live, Hazel didn't press the issue. She thought, one step at a time. "I'll settle into my job first and see." "Okay. Did you hear? The president came to work with a woman today. He even opened the car door for her himself." "Really? Who is she? Is she the president's girlfriend?" "No way, the president has never had a woman by his side for all these years. Maybe she's just a friend." "You never know. I heard she was promoted to be his secretary as soon as she arrived. The president is very protective of her." Look at Liam. Has he ever received such treatment? And the company has never had a female secretary before. Yeah, this woman must be something special. While the employees were whispering, someone with ulterior motives overheard and her face darkened. "Miss Everly, the president is in a meeting right now. This is your desk. It's very close to the president's office. If you need anything, you can contact him directly through the internal line." "Thank you." Liam settled Hazel in and left. Hazel looked at her desk, separated from Ethan's office by only a glass door. Hazel lowered her head, pushed aside her thoughts, and began to organize her things seriously. "So this is the new secretary? She doesn't look like much. Why would the president hire her as his secretary?" A discordant voice broke the silence. Hazel paused for a moment, then continued to organize her things as if she hadn't heard anything. Chapter 28. The little hedgehog. "Hey, I'm talking to you, are you mute?" Hazel couldn't be bothered to deal with them. She had seen plenty of girls like this before, and it wasn't enough to make her angry. In fact, she found it rather amusing. Seeing that Hazel was ignoring them, the woman glared and strode over, sweeping all the things Hazel had just organized onto the floor. Hazel finally stopped what she was doing. She looked up at the woman, her chin held high, and after a moment of silence, she smiled. "Does doing this make you feel proud? You were the one who ignored me and just kept organizing these stupid books. First, whether I talk to you or not is my business. If I don't want to talk to you, it's because I don't want to be bothered. Why are you clinging to me like a persistent rash? Second, you are an ordinary employee, and I am the executive secretary. It doesn't matter if I just started or not, as long as I hold this position, you have no right to provoke me. Third, these are not, as you put it, stupid books, but the documents the president needs in half an hour. Now that you've messed them all up, I can't protect you." Hazel shrugged. The woman, who had been arrogant and domineering, turned pale with fear. She looked at the documents on the floor, not knowing whether to pick them up or leave them, completely at a loss. No one saw anything. Who can prove that it was Chloe who did it? Another girl with short hair came over, her eyes filled with jealousy as she looked at Hazel. She pulled the first woman behind her and said, "You were the one who accidentally messed it up. How can you blame us?" Hazel didn't say anything. The woman continued, "You probably slept your way to the top. You can't even handle something this simple. How can you be the president's secretary? I think you should just go home and be a farmer." "You have a point," Hazel said with a smile. "But whether I did it or not is not up to you to decide. It saw everything." The woman looked up and saw a surveillance camera in the corner, recording their every move. still not leaving. When the president comes and sees this mess, are you really going to go home and be a farmer? You win, the woman left, muttering under her breath. You just wait. After they were gone, Hazel shook her head with a sigh and picked up the scattered documents one by one. When Ethan returned, she didn't mention the incident. However, rumors about her spread through the company like wildfire, and she was pointed at and whispered about wherever she went. Hazel didn't care. The innocent have nothing to fear. Her relationship with Ethan wasn't what they thought it was, so why bother with them? But just because Hazel didn't say anything didn't mean Ethan didn't know. When he saw the surveillance footage, although his face remained expressionless, Liam could feel the temperature in the room suddenly drop. The president was angry. Liam became even more careful, afraid of doing something to displease the president and getting fired. Investigate. Anyone who spread rumors is to be fired. Ethan closed his laptop. Useless people like them don't deserve to be at Sterling Industries. Yes, sir. Seeing Liam come out with a defeated look on his face, Hazel couldn't help but be curious. She asked, Liam, what's wrong? Is the president in a bad mood? Chapter 29. The kidnapping. Liam looked at Hazel, who was completely oblivious to the situation, and sighed inwardly. It's nothing, just work-related. The president is not in a bad mood. It's all because of this little ancestor in front of me. If it weren't for her, why would the president fire all those people? Some of them were gossips, but they were also competent. Why did they have to mess with her of all people? Can't they see she's the apple of the president's eye? Hazel paused for a moment, then went back to her work. Ethan watched her busy figure through the glass door, a smile playing on his lips. Hazel, as long as I'm here, no one can hurt you. I believe in you. You will become stronger, even stronger than you are now. Ethan, have you noticed that a few people seem to have left the company recently? During their lunch break, Hazel was eating with Ethan in his office. Ethan, his expression unchanged, placed a piece of pork rib in her bowl. Maybe they found better opportunities. Seeing that Ethan didn't seem concerned, Hazel didn't ask any more questions and fell silent. When it was time to leave work, Ethan was still in a meeting, so Hazel had the driver take her home first. Once she was home, she remembered that she had been using disposable chopsticks at the office and decided to go to the supermarket to buy some things. It had been a long time since she had gone out alone. Ethan had always been with her these past few days. As she was walking, Hazel felt like someone was following her. But when she turned around, there was no one there. Feeling a little wary, she took out her phone and called Ethan. The number you have dialed is switched off. Please try again later. Right? Ethan was still in a meeting, so it was normal for his phone to be off. But she still had a feeling of unease. Oh well, I'll just finish my shopping and go home. Hazel quickened her pace. Just then, she clearly heard footsteps behind her. Her heart pounded in her chest. She tried to calm herself down and slowly a bit, and just as the footsteps behind her faded, she suddenly broke into a run. However, after a few seconds, she felt a wave of dizziness, and then everything went black as her body went limp. That's all for today. Meeting adjourned? At 8 o'clock in the evening, the meeting ended. Ethan glanced at his watch. By now, Hazel should be at home waiting for him for dinner. It was a good feeling, knowing someone was waiting for him at home. It made the house feel less empty and more warm. Ethan's eyes softened as he turned on his phone and saw a missed call from Hazel. Hazel rarely called him. When Ethan called back, he got a message that her phone was switched off. Ethan frowned slightly, a bad feeling creeping up on him. Hazel's phone would never be out of battery. Did something happen? Liam, find Hazel's phone location for me right now. Immediately, on the other end of the line, Liam was taken aback by Ethan's tone. He had never seen the president so anxious. Had something happened? No, it must be Miss Everly. No one else could make the president so emotional and worried. Meanwhile, Hazel slowly regained consciousness. The first thing she saw was a white ceiling and a glaring light. Awake! Chapter 30. Assault and rescue. Hearing the familiar yet strange voice, Hazel was instantly wide awake. She shot up and looked at the figure. Julian, Hazel's eyes widened. Where is this? Why are you here? Why did you bring me here? The man in the bathrobe was none other than Julian Rhodes. He had just come out of the bathroom when Hazel woke up. Hazel's heart sank. So, the person following her earlier was him. But what did he want? You don't need to know where this is. Julian's light brown hair glinted under the light, just as it had when they first met. But the tenderness in his eyes was gone, replaced by a fiery gaze that made Hazel feel disgusted. "I brought you here because I want to tell you, Hazel, come back to me, I still love you." Hazel was stunned for a moment, then surprised to find that her heart felt nothing at his words. She couldn't help but smile bitterly. So she really didn't love him anymore. That was good. They could just let go and go their separate ways. "You're married," Hazel stated. "So what? Hazel, I love you. I only want to be with you. Impossible, I don't love you anymore," Hazel shouted. Julian's gentle smile froze, turning into anger. He advanced on her. "What did you say?" "I said I don't love you anymore," Hazel repeated, her eyes firm and unwavering. Julian felt a sense of defeat. "Why, because of Ethan Sterling? You've fallen in love with him. You've fallen in love with him?" Hazel didn't answer. She didn't know how to respond. Her silence seemed to be an answer for Julian. The once elegant man's demeanor changed in an instant. He stepped closer to Hazel, making her sense the danger. "What are you doing?" "What am I doing?" Julian laughed menacingly. Fine, even if you don't love me anymore. I still love you even if your heart isn't with me. I will have your body, then." He lunged at Hazel like a beast pouncing on its prey. Hazel screamed. "Ah, don't come near me." The man roughly tore at her clothes, revealing her fair skin, which only fueled Julian's lust. His rough kisses landed on her body. Tears streamed down Hazel's face as she struggled desperately. Get off me. Stop struggling. You wanted to know where this is? I'll tell you, this is my family's private hotel. You can't escape." "What?" "Julian, actually. Don't touch me." Her clothes were torn off one by one, leaving only her underwear. Hazel fought with all her might, but a woman's strength was no match for a man's. Despair began to set in. Julian's teeth gnawed at her collarbone and neck, making her feel sick. Ethan, where are you?" The man's hand ripped off her dress. Hazel closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. Was there really no escape? Bang! The man on top of her looked up in shock, only to be kicked away violently. Then a pair of angry, anxious eyes met Hazel's. The moment he saw her, the crimson in his eyes faded. Chapter 31, His Arrival. Ethan. Hazel looked at Ethan through tear-filled eyes. She felt that in this moment, she was just as helpless as she had been back then, and Ethan, just like that time, had appeared before her like a god to save her. Ethan took off his coat and draped it over Hazel, then held her tightly in his arms. For the first time in his life, he comforted her in a trembling voice. "Hazel, don't be afraid, I'm here." "Yes, I'm not afraid. Hazel's voice started to choke with sobs. "Ethan, I was so scared." "Don't be afraid." Ethan gently kissed the tears on Hazel's face. Heaven knows how anxious he had been when he couldn't find her, as if he was about to lose her. It was a feeling he had never experienced before, and one he never wanted to experience again. Thankfully, he hadn't been too late. His Hazel was still here, still by his side, and his Hazel had been praying for his arrival. Julian had been completely subdued by Liam and the bodyguards. He looked at Ethan and Hazel in his arms, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Damn it, he was so close, so close. "Don't be afraid. I'll have Liam take you home. I have some things to take care of. I'll be back to see you soon, okay?" Hazel nodded, nestled in Ethan's arms. It was only then that she realized, somewhere along the way, she had come to trust Ethan so much. In that desperate situation just now, all she could think of was him. After Hazel left, Ethan took the unclothed Julian straight to the Rhodes family estate. The Rhodes residence. "Oh my God, Julian, what happened?" Elena Rhodes screamed when she saw her son being brought home naked, surrounded by a large number of bodyguards. Belle and Marcus Rhodes also rushed over at the sound of the commotion, their faces pale with fright. "Julian, what's wrong with you?" Belle covered her mouth, her eyes fixed more on the tall, imposing man. It was Marcus who calmed down first. He composed himself and asked calmly, "I wonder how my son has offended Mr. Sterling for you to bring him here personally?" "He tried to assault my fiancé. Tell me, should I let him go?" Thinking of Hazel's state earlier, the crimson in Ethan's eyes deepened, making him look like a demon, a terrifying sight. Marcus's heart sank. He knew Julian had made a fatal mistake, poking the dragon. Wasn't this leading the entire Rhodes family to its doom? This, my son has done wrong and naturally should be punished by Mr. Sterling. However, the Rhodes family is also a prominent family in Easton City. I hope Mr. Sterling can show us some mercy. How about we discuss how to handle this inside? No need. Ethan's voice was icy. As for how to handle it, you can talk to my lawyer. A chilling, terrifying smile appeared on Ethan's face. There's no need to save face. After all, soon, the Rhodes family will no longer be prominent. Mr. Sterling, Marcus took a step back, his eyes wide, but he couldn't find the words to say. Ethan threw the terrified, limp Julian to the floor and wiped his hands with a handkerchief. As for this matter, it's not over yet. You can struggle all you want. In the end, I won't disappoint you. Ethan turned and left, his back to them. Of course, don't disappoint me either. As Ethan left, Julian sat on the floor, defeated and naked. Chapter 32. A catastrophe he never imagined Ethan would arrive so quickly, nor did he think that his moment of impulse would bring such a catastrophe upon his family. You unfilial son, Marcus's chest heaved with anger. He slapped Julian across the face, but Julian just sat there, dazed, his eyes lifeless. Julian Rhodes, how dare you do this behind my back? Belle was furious, but more than that, she was terrified. No, she couldn't stay here any longer, or she would be dragged down with them. I can't live like this anymore, I want a divorce. With that, Belle ran away from the unresponsive Julian, wiping her tears. Daughter-in-law, daughter-in-law, Eleanor Rhodes cried out, trying to chase after her, but Marcus stopped her. Her eyes filled with tears, and she started sobbing. What on earth happened? Why would Julian be so impulsive? That's enough, what's the use of crying? Marcus frowned tightly. A servant rushed out with some clothes and hastily draped them over Julian. Julian's cloudy eyes moved, his mouth opened, and then he burst into tears. Ah! Smack! Julian's face was met with another heavy slap from his father. Marcus was both anxious and angry. The Rhodes family business, passed down through generations, had flourished under his father's leadership. But no matter what, they could never compare to the century-old Sterling family. They knew they were no match, so they never dared to aim for the top, content with being second. But even so, the vast enterprise he had worked so hard to maintain was now being ruined by this prodigal son. You hit me? Julian looked at his father in disbelief. Marcus looked down at him. Unfilial son, look what you've done now that you've offended Ethan Sterling. Our entire Rhodes family is finished. It's just one Ethan Sterling, why are you all so afraid of him? Afraid of him. Marcus snorted, his eyes filled with despair, but he still roared with anger. He is Ethan Sterling, behind him is the Sterling family. Have you lived all these years and never heard of the Sterling family? With Ethan Sterling after us, let alone the Rhodes family, we'll be lucky to escape with our lives. Hearing this, Julian staggered and collapsed to the floor. His father never exaggerated. So, it seemed that this time, his impulsiveness had truly pushed him to a dead end. You actually tried to assault his fiancé, that disgraced Everly heiress. How is she better than Belle, that you would be so reckless? Julian clutched his head, all his previous bravado gone. He trembled, thinking of what was to come, and couldn't help but shiver. He couldn't imagine what he would go through if what his father said was true. But why had he taken Hazel to the hotel? Because he had discovered her beauty, her transformation. That beauty was so dazzling it made him unable to look away, and he regretted it. He didn't want to miss her like this, didn't want to see her in another man's arms. Chapter 33. Love turned to hate. Julian opened his mouth, but he had no words of defense. Marcus, furious, grabbed a broom from a nearby servant and beat Julian with it. You bastard unfilial son, I'll teach you to force yourself on someone. I'll teach you to do such a despicable thing. Scenes flashed before Marcus's eyes. He saw himself 3 days from now, lying destitute under a bridge, living like a beggar. And it was all thanks to the wonderful son he had raised. Because of a moment of foolishness, the entire Rhodes family was going down with him. Just you wait, Ethan Sterling's revenge is coming soon. As he beat his son, Marcus muttered to himself. Eleanor, thinking of their future destitution, froze for a moment, then came to her senses. She threw herself over Julian, shielding him with her body. The sound of the heavy blows thudded against her, and a look of pain crossed her face. Get up, Marcus was seeing red. Let me beat this unfilial son to death, he's driving me mad. Stop it, stop hitting him. Faced with such a sudden turn of events, Eleanor was in shock. She was in tears. Don't hit him, he's your son even if he did something wrong, you can't treat him like this. Marcus was too angry to listen. He pulled Alina away and continued to beat Julian. Julian clenched his teeth, silently enduring the beating, his eyes filled with hatred. Ethan Sterling, it's you, it's all your fault, you're the reason the Rhodes family has come to this now. Hazel, it's you, you're the root of all this. If you hadn't appeared by Ethan Sterling's side, how would I have been drawn to you, and then hated by Ethan Sterling? It's all your fault. All your fault. I hate you. The news that the sole son of the Rhodes family had attempted to rape Ethan Sterling's fiancé quickly spread throughout Easton City. The story fermented like wine, fueled by rumors, speculation, and ridicule, bringing utter disgrace to the Rhodes family. Companies that had partnered with them began to pull their investments, using flimsy excuses. Their stock was bought up in large quantities by an unknown corporation. Overnight, Rhodes Corp became precarious, its former glory gone. Ethan Sterling moved quickly. Marcus seemed to age overnight, becoming haggard and worn out, overwhelmed by the daily crises. Julian, the center of the scandal, was now a laughingstock in the media. He no longer appeared in public, instead hiding at home, locked in his room. After divorcing Julian, Belle was also affected. Ethan Sterling's revenge had begun, and the Everly family was not spared. Their situation was now as precarious as the Rhodes, just an empty shell. Thankfully, after the divorce, Belle was supposed to get a share of the Rhodes family's assets. But in their current state, the promised assets could not be fully given to her, which infuriated her. If she had known, she would never have married Julian. She had only been with him because he was handsome and rich. Now, look at this mess. She was so embarrassed. Chapter 34. Assassination. Belle had a mind to get close to Ethan Sterling, but he had made it clear last time that if she dared to provoke him again, she would bring disaster upon herself. And it was obvious that the Everly family's current situation was largely Ethan's doing. Arthur, go beg Hazel if she just says the word. Ethan Sterling will let our family off. What do you know? Arthur irritably pushed Beatrice's hand away. Ethan Sterling must have found out that he had kicked Hazel out of the house. Otherwise, he wouldn't have directly crushed his company. Are you Mr. Arthur Everly? Arthur looked up. A group of police officers with handcuffs had entered his home. You are suspected of bribing government officials. Please come with us. Recently, it has been confirmed that Marcus Rhodes, chairman of Rhodes Corporation, was involved in illegal arms dealing. Rhodes Corp is currently under investigation, and Marcus Rhodes has been taken into police custody for further questioning. According to his confession, other corporations in the city are also involved in similar activities. Hazel was watching the news, with Ethan sitting beside her in his shirt. Although she had stopped crying after that day, she still trembled and was afraid of people getting close. Ethan had spent a few days at the villa with her, helping her to slowly open up. Now she was smiling again, but the incident would forever be a shadow in her heart. You did this, didn't you? Hazel turned to look at Ethan. The downfall of the Rhodes family, was it you? Yes. Ethan admitted it directly. But the fact that he was dealing in illegal arms is true. I just gave them the evidence. It was the Rhodes family's own carelessness that let me catch them by the tail. Hazel bit her lip and said nothing more. Since the Rhodes family was in the wrong, they should bear the consequences of their actions. But that Julian Rhodes? Ethan narrowed his eyes. He won't live long. What do you mean? Hazel looked up sharply, but Ethan said calmly, he slept with too many women, including one with AIDS, without knowing. I'm afraid he'll find out soon and live out the rest of his life in misery. Hearing this, Hazel didn't feel much. She just thought that Julian, who had been so promiscuous his whole life, had ironically brought about his own downfall through his promiscuity. The weather is nice today. Let's go for a walk. Ethan took Hazel to a newly developed park. The park had just been completed and was beautiful. It was built on land that had once belonged to Rhodes Corp. Hazel's eyes sparkled as she looked at the scenery. It's beautiful. Why did you suddenly build a park? Ethan, wearing a coat, followed behind her. He looked at her bright eyes and was about to speak when his expression suddenly turned extremely cold and menacing. Hazel, watch out. Hazel turned around, her instincts telling her to dodge. She moved just in time to avoid a sharp blade that glinted in the light. The man slowly took off his cap, revealing a haggard, bearded face. It was none other than Julian Rhodes, who had already been infected with AIDS. At the same time, Ethan stepped in front of Hazel, shielding her. Julian? Hazel was surprised to see how haggard Julian had become in just a few days. He stared at her with eyes full of hatred. "Yes, it's me, surprised? Put the knife down." Ethan's voice was sharp. "You're no match for me, so put the knife down." Chapter 35. The finale, never, Julian roared. "It's you, it's all of you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have ended up like this, and you, the culprits, are here leisurely strolling in the park. Why is this happening? Why was fate so unfair to him? Because you did something wrong." Though shielded by Ethan, Hazel was very calm. She said flatly, "You should ask yourself that." "I did nothing wrong." Julian's eyes were bloodshot, like a lion on the verge of a breakdown. He was so consumed by hatred that he couldn't hear Hazel's words. His heart was filled with his own resentment and indignation at the world. "What did I do wrong? I just wanted you to come back to me. What did I do wrong?" Julian brandished the dagger, inching closer to Ethan and Hazel. "It's you didn't stay by my side, you disgusting woman. I hate you." "Shut up," Hazel said. "You were the one who betrayed me first. From that day on, I no longer belong to you. It is disgusting. I'm disgusted with myself for ever loving you. If she could, she would rather have never met Julian Rhodes, never have loved him." "No, that's not it. You shut up, shut up. I hate you, I hate you." The sharp blade lunged towards Ethan, but with just a few swift moves, Ethan had Julian pinned to the ground. He stood over him, one foot on his chest. Julian lay on the ground, motionless, as if he had passed out. Suddenly, with a strength that came from nowhere, Julian scrambled up from the ground and charged at Hazel. Hazel instinctively closed her eyes. Just then, she heard the sound of a knife piercing flesh. Ethan had shielded Hazel with his own body. He staggered back a few steps, then kicked Julian in the chest. The man was sent flying several feet away and collapsed, unconscious. Ethan, don't die, we're going to the hospital." "Hazel." As Hazel dialed for an ambulance, tears streamed down her face. Ethan took her hand and said, "Do you remember 8 years ago the boy you protected?" Hazel froze. She looked at the teardrop-shaped mole at the corner of Ethan's eye and suddenly remembered. 8 years ago, she had met a battered little boy. To protect him, she had been beaten up by some unknown people. "It was you." When Hazel looked down, the man in her arms had already lost consciousness. The hospital. Looking at Ethan's unconscious face, Hazel's heart ached. The moment he said those words, she remembered everything. No wonder he had looked so familiar. He was the little boy she had saved 8 years ago. Why had it taken her so long to realize? To realize who he was, to realize the depth of his love, and more importantly, to realize that she had already fallen deeply in love with him. She shouldn't have run away. Ethan had done so much for her, even risking his life. And what had she done? But thankfully, tears streamed down her face. Hazel held Ethan's hand tightly, her eyes fixed on the steady rhythm of the heart monitor. Thankfully, fate had not taken him from her. Thankfully, it was not too late. 6 months later. "Ethan Sterling, do you take Hazel Everly to be your wife, to live together in the covenant of marriage? Will you love her, comfort her, honor and keep her, in sickness and in health, and forsaking all others, be faithful to her as long as you both shall live?" "I do." "Hazel Everly, do you take Ethan Sterling to be your husband, to live together in the covenant of marriage? Will you love him, comfort him, honor and keep him, in sickness and in health, and forsaking all others, be faithful to him as long as you both shall live?" I do."